What's the Cowboys' least and most concerning things heading into training camp? We are 19 days away from training camp. Reg, we are your home of the Dallas Cowboys, which means we will be in Oxnard. Sean and RJ, KNC Masterpiece, and the G-Bag Nation will have you all covered from Oxnard, California, starting on July 26th.
And we'll see if we can rope a few of them dudes on our show as well.
Definitely.
To give us heads up since, they get to go on.
It's not that they're going to be working hard. They're just going to be out there in the California sun watching practice. I don't think it's all that hard work, is it?
I can't imagine.
I'm just joking.
And you know what? If it is, we just gonna make them work a little.
Just make them work a little more. That's all. It's
Yeah.
gonna be early out there. So let's get into this. What concerns you most? Let's start with what concerns you most. If you're a Cowboys fan, someone who supports this team, let me know on the truckwreck.com text line 877-881-1053. Reg, what concerns you most about the Cowboys heading into camp in 19 days?
This is funny because you can go in all sorts of different places.
Lots of directions if you want to.
Right? I think the one that jumps out the most, and we've done this a lot. We've talked about it a lot, and I think in a way we will talk about it again very shortly, like the next segment, which is the wide receiver core. The wide receiving core, you intentionally moved on from a guy in Amari Cooper who easily you could view as, the best receiver on your team. And in the way of replacement, even though you understand that, CeeDee Lamb is going to be the next receiver, he was there last year. In the way of replacement, the new guy in the core is a third-round pick, right? So, that's not you. It'd be unfair to expect that guy to give you the same kind of production. And then the number two guy now, or I guess who was always the number two in the ways that you viewed it with this wide receiver core, is going to miss some time. And we don't even know how much time, right? We haven't gotten a timeline on this yet. We hope to, once you get to camp, once they're actually out there practicing, rehabbing, what have you, to get an actual timeline so we'll know if it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, right? Whatever it happens to be, we'll have a better idea. But there is the reasonable expectation that he misses a decent amount of time to start the season. So what is it that you're looking for to be the strength on this team? Because last year you came into the season expecting the offense to be the boom of this team. Like, you expected the offense to be able to get out there and put up points. Mm-hmm. And you had some questions about the defense. I'm not certain that I look at the defense and go, okay, yeah, no, that's absolutely strength. I still think you need to have a certain amount of offense, even for the slightest reason of you're paying your quarterback a whole bunch of money. But I don't know that you have the strength of the wide receiving core to feel great about that. So going into camp, that's one of the most concerning things, if not the most concerning thing for me.
From the 972, that $20 million a year for Amari Cooper is looking like a bargain now. From the 817, the pass rush is what concerns them most. And for another one from the 817, does Diggs give up more yards than he did last year or more since he's such a gambler? Which we'll talk about Trayvon Diggs throughout the course of our show as well. But I think if one thing concerns me most, it is the offensive line. And what doesn't concern me is the fact that Ty Nsekhe is on this roster, because he's not, which people adequately pointed out to me. Because I had mistakenly said that. Yeah,
you had said that, and I thought I had forgot some, but apparently I didn't forget some.
No, you didn't. You were 100% correct.
Awesome.
So don't have to worry about Ty Nsekhe, because he's no longer around here.
So now you just got to worry about, let's
everyone else.
That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think the way that this offensive line goes is going to tell us a lot of how this offense goes this upcoming season. And for a lot of people, whether it be Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield, who's putting out, workout propaganda, best shape in your life season right now.
That's right.
For all NFL players.
That's right.
And not only for Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott, his ability to feel comfortable not only within the pocket, but also to utilize his legs when he has the opportunities to, and create timing for him to be able to throw the football to the pass catchers that you were mentioning, whether it be CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, James Washington. Once Michael Gallup comes back and is healthy for this team, this offensive line is going to tell us a lot about how this offense is going to go, and the confidence in Tyler Smith's ability to be able to establish himself as the left guard of this team, I think is going to be huge for them, because now you will feel much more solidified, at least on that portion of the offensive line, because you know that Tyler Smith's going to miss, 2 to 3 games in a season, given the fact that he hasn't played a full season of games since 2015. So offensive line-wise, I'm a little bit more concerned, because there's still questions about maybe that center position with Tyler Biadasz, Matt Farniok. I'm not concerned, obviously, about Zach Martin, because he's on his way to Canton. And then Terence Steele, who's going to be taking over for La'el Collins, who moved on, of course, to the Cincinnati Bengals. How the right tackle and left guard and center position shape up, to me, is going to tell us a lot about the consistency of this offense this upcoming season in my mind.
So we've got some really interesting text right here on the truckwreck.com text line. But before I get there, allow me to tease forward to a segment that we have later in the show. I believe 8:40 is the time that we said it, because I've been doing my rewatch of the Cowboys 2021 season. And today was week 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I will just read you one note that I had of the many notes that I had on this game. And it reads as follows. Tyler Smith can't possibly lose like Connor Williams. So like when we talk about worried about this offensive line, sure, I get that. I'm looking at it and I'm like, it can't possibly be like this, right? Connor Williams was out here not only holding like no man's business, he was also getting whooped. And of course I get it. The Eagles had a very particularly good interior defensive line. Tyler Smith is big and strong, and at least if he's going to get whooped, it's going to be like technique. He's not getting out here mushed, And so, like,
you don't have to worry about physicality with Tyler Smith.
And I think that's a big change. And Terence Steele played last year for this Cowboys team, right? So I think that there's the worry for people with Terence. I keep want to call him Tyler. Golly, with Terence Steele, and hit me up on the truckwreck.com text line if you agree or disagree. I don't think people are afraid that he's going to flat out stink. I think people are afraid that maybe he doesn't live up to the same expectations that you have for La'el Collins. But I think that you still anticipate that there's a certain level of standard that you're getting out of Terence Steele. And then if Tyler Smith is just like big, strong, and not going to get whooped on the interior, I think that you can have a line that is somewhat similar to the line that you had last year, because I don't think anybody was under like the disillusion that last year's offensive line was great. Right, I think the understanding was it was sufficient. And I think that you can have another sufficient line with what you have right now.
Yeah, because I think for both the offensive and defensive lines, they are going to tell us a lot about how this team goes, because there's been a lot of conversation, not just about the offensive line, but how the defensive line is going to perform, especially in the interior, if guys like Neville Gallimore, Osa Odighizuwa, and others are able to consistently be able to get pressure up the middle, and not only just in attacking the run game against opponents, but also being able to generate somewhat of a pass rush. If Neville Gallimore or Osa Odighizuwa can find a way to generate even a small amount of pass rush to be able to help, DeMarcus Lawrence and Sam Williams and Dante Fowler Jr. and obviously Dorrance Armstrong on the outside, on the edges, now you're talking about a multi-dimensional defensive line that can create pressure in a lot of different ways. And then when you start adding Micah Parsons, who is the least of my concerns going into 2022, now you can deploy him in a lot of different ways, because if you're creating pressure up the middle, now you're getting pressure on the edges. Micah Parsons can roam around and do what he does best, which is attack offenses in a number of different ways, whether it's rushing the quarterback, whether it's being able to play a little bit in coverage, be able to play the run. The defensive and offensive lines, I think, will tell us a lot about how this team is going to perform based on what these two units have to do to make this team successful in 2022.
So from the 682, on my point when I was talking about the wide receivers, y'all are sleeping on the Steelers guy we got at wide receiver, and there was another a text that I seemingly just lost from right in front of me. Oh, same 682. James Washington is as good as Michael Gallup. MG13 is who they put here. Mm-hmm. Look, man, maybe that's the case.
Let's hope we're sleeping on James Washington. Let's hope we are.
Right, and that's the thing, is I think we're in a place of hope on that one. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could say the same about my feelings on Tyler Smith, but I think we know the strength that he has. I think the hope is that he gets the technique down. With these other guys on the wide receiving core, I'm not certain. So maybe we get into camp and we find out that, oh yeah, those concerns are unfounded. I sure as heck hope so, right? For y'all's sake, for KG's sake, right? I'm not even gonna put it on y'all. KG being here, driving up his blood pressure behind these Cowboys. You heard him in the crosstalk where he was losing his damn mind about some Von Miller stuff we already knew.
Now look, now hold on.
So look, I really do, for KG's hypertension and his insurance and his wife and daughter, that those wide receivers end up looking a lot more credible in training camp than we anticipated. Like Cedric Wilson did, 817, in the same way that he stepped up, right? I would love to see that. I just had that concern for sure going in.
It's funny you said it, because myself and a lot of Cowboys fans and supporters who watched this team throughout the years, we've been taking a lot of hopium for a long time. And I think a lot of us are ready to get off the hopium train and be able to see some actual results that are long lasting for this team, given how they played last year, a 12-5 season, the way that they turned teams over defensively, how the first 6-7 weeks of the season offensively went, because The wildest part about last year is that we said that if the offense was able to perform the way that we believe it's capable of, and the defense just be average, just be good enough to not get out here and mess it up on a week-to-week basis, this team could win a lot of games and possibly make a deep run in the playoffs. And guess what? The defense during the second half of the year, in a lot of ways, was a reason why this team was able to do and have the kind of success that it had. Now, going into 2022, even with some of the regressions that you've had talent-wise, you're hoping that both offensively and defensively, they will be on the same page in order for this team to have the kind of success they should have, not only in the NFC East, but be able to go beyond just the wild card round and maybe into the divisional round and maybe into the NFC Championship game. But that's a lot of hope that we've been on based on these rosters that we've seen over the last few years.
All right, so this is interesting because, I mean, it takes it off the field, but there was no constraints or stipulations in the question that it had to be on the field.
Sure.
From the 817, I'm concerned about Kellen Moore. Even with the stacked roster, the offense faltered last season. If it happens again, I wouldn't mind just letting him walk. Do you have concerns about Kellen Moore, your offensive play caller, Kevin Gray?
Yeah, because last year, cover 2 got him. And I was not expecting now the way that the Broncos ran their version of cover 2.
Let's be a little bit more clear in the way that we talk about this, because it's really easy to just say cover 2. Like, this is a pretty advanced way that Vic Fangio in particular, right, as we were talking about with the Denver Broncos, but also his acolytes, the people that have come through his tree or have been, associated with him through various degrees of separation. They run this defense that's kind of taking, I don't want to say taking over the league, but has grown a little bit in stature around the league that is very complex and forces offenses into interesting places. So it is a cover 2, but I mean, it's not just as simple as the cover 2 that you're familiar with. They do some really interesting things that force you to read things in the moment and not give you, they don't give you those pre-snap reads that make any quarterback better, being able to have some idea of what's happening. You have to do all of it in the moment reading. So it does make it tough. That said, you are right. That the particular cover 2 that we're talking about gave them a fits.
Yeah, and I think for me, what bothers me most about Kellen Moore, and I've talked to Broadus about this, is Kellen Moore has never really defined who he is as an offensive coordinator. What is his fallback? What is that he actually believes? What is his core philosophy when it comes to
lots
offense?
of good plays?
That's what
lots
I'm saying.
Of good plays.
There's nothing that you feel like he holds on to from a core philosophical standpoint offensively that you could feel like if something A goes wrong, something B goes wrong, something C goes wrong, that he can find a way to adjust and then be able to adapt to what teams are doing against him. That, to me, has to be the next step for him as a coordinator and as a coach. How do you find a way to find something that you hang your hat on offensively so that when things aren't going the way that you want them to, you can go back to whatever bread and butter you feel like is to your core, how successful your offense can be. Kellen Moore, for me, has never defined that as the offensive coordinator for this team. If he can find some semblance of definition to the core of what his offense is, I would feel much better about his ability to create, adapt, and find different ways to get these playmakers involved. Because if he can, now I think this offense becomes that much more dynamic based on the playmakers and who they're trying to deploy within this offense.
So would it be fair to say that, because we talked about the least concerning or the most concerning things up and down, would it be fair to say that the least concerning thing you do is like his counterpart, Dan Quinn?
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned.
I feel like that's the one that everybody talks about.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about Dan Quinn. I'm not just concerned about Micah Parsons. In a lot of ways, I'm really not concerned about Trayvon Diggs, no matter how much you feel like he gives up in terms of, yards, on the field. There's a lot of things defensively, which again is another wild aspect of how this team is now, constructed, is that in a lot of ways defensively, I don't have as many concerns as I do on the offensive side of the football.